Today we are going to be painting an Oregon scene. This is a photograph that my sister took when she was on vacation here in Oregon at Lewis and Clark National Historic Park. And I think this was near the canoe landing. And I loved this picture that she chose. I actually taught her how to paint it. And this is what we came up with. This is mine that I finished during the tutorial that I gave her. But it's a really wonderful Oregon scene where we're going to be able to capture some of the mistiness of the forest, and you can see just the gray clouds and do something nice with the reflection of the water. So this one, it's quite a few steps. We're going to start with doing the background. So we're going to do wet on wet for the sky and for the water. We'll do kind of a gray blue wash throughout the entire thing, dry it, and then we'll do the background trees and then kind of the smaller scrubby trees and work our way forward. I liked putting in these trees before I did the reflection, so that way I could align the reflection correctly. The water will do a tiny bit of dry brushing, but you can see even in the photograph that it's pretty gray, and so we're going to leave it mostly gray and do a clean wash of water. So there might be a lot of switching out your water in this. There's going to be a lot of drying your brush, and there's going to be, you know, lots of fun, hopefully. When you paint watercolor, I feel like your paper is very important. And I love Arch's cold press paper. It's really great for doing things that are a little bit more expressive rather than the hot press paper. I already have this taped off to a 5x7, which again is a nice tip. When I first started doing watercolor, I did everything at like a 9x12 size because that's the paper that I had, and then I realized, oh, you can't get a frame that's 9x12. So try to paint, if you ever think you might want to frame something or make prints of it, a normal size to frame it potentially. So this is a 5x7, and so it's a little bit easier to work small when you're first starting out too. So let's get started. I am using Daniel Smith watercolors. This is Payne's Gray. I'm just going to fill up my palette over here. I have a few other colors on here, but I don't think I'll be using those. All right, so Payne's Gray, lots of gray in this Oregon scene. Lunar Blue, which I'm going to put it over here so I remember which is which, because they look a lot alike when they aren't soggy. I have Quinn Gold. And you know, watercolor goes a long way. You don't really have to dish out a ton of it, and then if it dries, it's fine, it'll reconstitute. So don't wash your palette, people. Keep your palette dirty, and then you can reuse everything. The yellow is the hardest to keep clean, but I like a little bit of brightness and being able, I'm going to use a few pre-mixed greens, but it's nice to have the yellow to make it brighter if you want to. Okay, this is under sea green. It's kind of a nice bright dark green. Under sea green and sap green. Oh, sorry, sap green's my bright one. So I'm gonna put my sap green in here, which I think is what that is. So sap green is my brighter one and under sea green is my dark one. And then we need lamp black. Like, we just gotta have it. It helps to darken up our trees, and also I like the neutralness that we can get in our water by using it. So you are gonna need a little bit of this lamp black. So, okay. we have our Oregon colors. Okay, let's get started. I like to start first by wetting down my paper. And when we do this, I think I've said it before, but I'll say it again. You want the paper to be wet, but not soggy when you're working. You can tell like I'm reusing my tape. I think that's something that I started doing in college when I was doing some drafting. I would save the drafting dots because I was a poor college kid, and now I seem to be doing it again, reusing tape until it's no longer sticky. Like this stuff isn't completely cheap, but you can tell it like made a little bit of a blue tint to my paper, but I do not mind. Like we got a bluish gray scene, so let's roll with it. Okay, and like I know I have this painting right here, but I'm assuming the one I'm about to do is going to look a bit different. That's just how watercolor is. Okay, so it's all kind of the same amount of dampness, and now let's make our sky. Let's mix up our colors a bit. All right, let's see. Here's my Payne's gray. Or is that my lunar blue? See, guys, I even said, let me try to keep these the same. Nope, that's the lunar blue. This is the Payne's gray. Okay. So I want to have kind of a bluish gray color. So this lunar blue is really nice for this because it's that deep kind of almost navy blue. But I don't want it to be too dark. So always, always, always have your test strip of paper to test everything out. So you can see that is pretty dark. Like look at our sky over here. That would be kind of a stormy sky. So we want to add more water. Like that's how you get the right color sometime. Well, every time with watercolor is you add water to dilute the color. And so see how much lighter that is? And then since the paper is wet, that'll also dilute the color. But I think that might be enough paint for what we want to do. So I'm gonna grab my number 2 round quill. I really love these brushes because they hold a lot of paint and a lot of water. I'm gonna get it wet but not dripping. Give it a good tap. And then we're gonna kind of sweep our color on here. And it's gonna be just nice and gray. Because that's what it was, a nice gray sky here in Oregon. And you might wanna, you can just grab color as you want and mix it up a bit. I kind of like the lunar blue, like adding a little bit of that in at the corners to darken it up. It gives it a little bit more texture, I think, and color. But you don't have to get too wild with it because it's just a nice kind of gray day. And as we get down to the horizon line, I liked how it turns a little bit white, and even on the inspiration image you can see that it does that. But then get down to the water. Since our water, it's not going to be white, it's going to have the same color as the sky since it's reflecting it. So we're going to put just some sweeps in there to give it that same look as the sky has. Just real light. And then we'll paint over it to give it that kind of green reflection hue. So there we go. Feeling pretty happy with that. There's always a point in watercolor where you want to keep fussing with it and you need to stop. I feel like that's one of the hardest things to learn. It's the paint consistency and when to stop. And I should stop, but I'm having fun. So that's also what matters, right? Okay. Okay, let's dry it so we can move on to the next layer. All right, I think it's dry. Let's check it. Feels pretty dry. So you want to make sure if it's damp at all, the color is gonna spread around. And at this point, we want to have a little bit more control. Like these trees are in the distance, so they don't have as much detail and they're lighter, but it's not totally raining or misty. So I want it to feel misty a little bit at the bottom, but not necessarily at the top. Whereas like if I wanted it to be raining, I probably would have done a line of trees in the back while this was still wet. But we're going off of this picture, so let's give it a try. Paint some trees, which is really my favorite thing. I could paint trees all day. So hopefully you enjoy doing this too. So let's mix a nice green for this. We want to have something that is not that bright. Like this is so pretty, this green, but it's gonna bring those background trees forward if we use something this bright in a hue. So we want to do something a little bit darker, which is why this undersea green is really nice. So I'm going to mix these two together. And I might even add this in here just to even bring back that green a little more, make it a little bluer. Till I get a green that feels muted. I want like a nice muted green for the background. I kind of like this one. So you see how I just used my sky color to create my tree color? If you have a little extra blue-gray, you can definitely do that. And now test it out. Okay, so let's talk trees before we even start doing this. So this was something when I did a tutorial with my sister that it really helped to talk about making trees before we did it. So these ones are in the background. So let's try to give them the shape of a tree without putting every single branch in there. And your trees don't all need to be the same height. That actually helps if they aren't. I like to use a liner brush, but you might want to use something bigger depending on what level of detail you want and, just what feels right for you. But you can see I'm making my little line first, and then each tree is going to be a little bit more organic and kind of messy, really. That's what makes it feel real, is that mess. So if you did a tree like you think in your mind instead of what you look at, you might end up making like a Christmas tree, or you might end up really doing something more along these lines, which isn't going to give you the same feeling as having that organic mess. So don't be afraid to make every tree a little bit different, change the heights of them so it feels more like a forest. Because you can see, even looking at this picture, that not all of the trees, like there's somewhat similar height, but there's some variation in there. And that's what's going to make your painting feel a little bit more realistic. And then when you get to the bottom, you can see that I just kind of blend this out. Let's see, I'll do another one because you need to work while your paint's wet to blend it at the bottom. So you'll see when I do it for real, but that's how you get that mistiness at the bottom, is you have a little bit of water down there. But know that if you add that water, you aren't going to be able to manipulate that space. So, okay, let's get started on our trees. want it a little bit greener. There we go. Okay. And so this is your back horizon line, which I'm picking a spot here that is about 1/3 or half-ish, a little bit more than half of the way up. So you can see that my trees are kind of light, a little bit messy. That one was a little chunky. Next one I might make a little skinny. Like you just gotta add some variation in them so they don't all look exactly the same. And feel free to like grab a little bit extra paint to make them vary in shade too and hue. Like I think that that helps to add interest. Like we don't want it to jump completely to the front of your painting, but I don't think it will necessarily if you have a little bit of variation in there. And we're gonna add some shrubbery down at the bottom. And sometimes what I like to do is add just some water down here as I'm going. It's gonna have a little bloom, but I don't mind it. Like I think that's some of the beauty of watercolors when you get those surprising blooms that you weren't necessarily planning. And then you can see how it just fades out a little bit more. Just look how pretty that is when it runs a bit. So. Oh, I seriously just love painting trees. I could do it all day. It's really nice that we have so many here in the Pacific Northwest to do. And you can see, like, these are not perfect trees, and that is what I'm going for. So I don't want them to be perfect. You want them to have some life and some definition, like be different. So I'm getting kind of to the spot where I'm going to end up covering a lot of my trees with my 3 trees over here, but I still want to be able to see some in the back, so I'm going to put a few, but I'm not going to probably make as much of an effort to blend it out at all. So, and I'll probably make them lighter, so that way there's just a hint of a tree in the back. It doesn't necessarily have to be much going on there since we're gonna have so much dark foreground trees. Once you're done, you can take a look and see how you feel about if you want to add more trees in the back, if you want to add another row of trees. Like I think technically this painting has 2 or 3 rows of forest back there, but I just wanted to give the impression of it rather than painting every single layer. But you know, it's your painting, and if you're just really into making the trees, like by all means, keep going. And I actually am like really liking this misty look down here. It's going to make the trees that we do at the bottom, the kind of shrubbery pop a bit. So I am going to add just a few more trees to just a hint of them, not even all the way down, just to vary the height a bit. Even though this one might be end up being covered up, it just, we don't know exactly yet where these trees are going to all fall. Okay, so there's our background trees. Let's dry this, and then we'll do the next layer of trees, this little layer right here. And then after that, I want to sketch on here to get it so we know where this water line is, where this other little water line is, so we can maintain the water that we want and work on our grass and everything. So let's go ahead and dry this. All right, that's good and dry. So let's go ahead and do our next round of trees. I'm going to use a little bit bigger brush on this because I want it to feel a little bit chunkier, maybe a little less delicate than what's happening there in the back. So let's get this darker green going. This is that undersea green. I'm going to add a little bit of Payne's Gray to it, just a wee bit. Then I'm going to test it. Whew, too dark. Add some water. See, I'm liking that better. Still a little too dark for what I want in the back, but it's less bright. It's like enough of a change from the other green. Okay, so now we're going to make our kind of shrubby area, and I'm moving my brush in, I'm gonna say, random ways. Like, don't make smooth lines. We're trying to make it look like shrubby foliage. So add some different colors in there. Like, you can mix it up a bit, but we still want it to be kind of far away. So like that might have been a little bit too ambitious. So I'm gonna add some water. I'm just gonna mix it up like it's far away. There, I put a little bit of that lunar blue in there. And some water to blend it out, because it's gonna feel a little bit messy, but just the hint that there's something back there. It doesn't need to feel like you can tell every shrub. And then if you dab it a bit, lift a bit of that paint, it's gonna continue that misty, mysterious vibe that we were kind of hoping to achieve back there. And you can play with this again once you get all of your foreground done. You can add to it, change it up a little bit, so that way maybe the colors that you chose will play better together after you did this. I think I did end up doing that after the fact last time because I just thought that it needed more depth to the painting. So I'm gonna stop it kind of in here because it's all gonna be covered up with our trees. So I'm gonna call that good. I'm kind of happy with how messy my forest is looking. All right, nice and dry. All right, so let's do a little bit of sketching. And I'm gonna be real honest with you. One of the things I like about painting is that or painting landscapes specifically, is the lack of sketching. I do a lot of technical drawing in my day-to-day job, so I like to paint because it gives me space to just be a little bit more creative and looser. But I think this painting does need a little bit of a sketch, so that way we maintain some accuracy as to like where things end up. So I am just looking at my picture that we have there, and you could just make a straight line in this one. I like the feeling of the curve. I feel like it gives a little bit more depth. So I'm gonna add my curve in there, kind of like I did in my painting rather than in the photograph. It just gives a little more dimension. So, and have it move in and out a little bit. And then, same with this. It's like you can kind of see this little peninsula comes out. I think in my painting, I kind of liked how I let it go behind the tree. I'm going to do that again. You can really play with this, how far you want it to go out. Just whatever feels right. It doesn't have to be like the picture, it doesn't have to be like my painting. Just have some fun with it. I think I made it a little bit chunky, which it's nice. You can erase right on top of your watercolor paper. And that's the thing, like, it's just paper. So as long as you have fun while you're doing it, that's all that really matters. And again, don't be too perfect. Like the edge of a river is rarely straight, so let it undulate a bit. Okay, I'm happy. Let's go ahead and paint our grass now that we have that. And these lines, I used a regular pencil. They would show up, but we have a dark shadow along the edge of our bank, so I am not worried about that in this instance. So let's keep going. Let's do our grass. I liked this having less detail in the back, and even in the photograph you can see it's just this super bright green. So I want to have a smooth, super bright green in the back. I want to have up front there, you can actually see the bunches of grasses, and so we're going to add a little bit of texture and a little bit of this quin gold to separate everything, and then once it's dry, we'll come back in and add some of these details to give it that grassy feeling. And you could really get detailed with this and do actual bunches of grass like we see in the photograph. Or if you just want to get the general feeling of a grassy area, you can do what I'm going to do here. So let's get started. And this, I'm not going to do wet and wet. I'm just going to use wet paint to get everything to mix together. And I'm going to do a lot of my mixing on the paper, just grabbing different colors as I see fit. So I want bright green, so I'm going to make it with this lemon yellow. And you see how I just keep using the same color and changing it a little bit. And also, this is the thing with yellow, is now it's no longer just yellow, it's greenish yellow, but that's okay. So you see how nice and bright this is getting? I want it even a little bit brighter. So I'm going to add a little more of that lemon yellow. And I don't want it to be too thin of a wash. Yeah, there we go. Now we're talking. Okay, and add a little bit of this undersea green in there to, yeah, give it that bright. Oh no, I think I had it right before. This is the fun though, see? And look how nice they look together. So I'm gonna mix again. And I'm just gonna do it over here. Gonna grab my yellow and use it over here. Okay. Yeah, I'm right back there where I want to be. Okay, so don't be scared. Just go in and start adding color. And so I want that bright green in the back. You see, I'm gonna bring it all the way back. So it doesn't matter too much. I just want it to be simple so we can see these trees really well. So that I want simple. And then I'm gonna grab my Quinn gold. I'm gonna grab some of this green and I'm gonna throw that down. It's gonna make it a little bit more brown, which makes it feel like there's a break in the vegetation. And I'm liking that. And then I'm gonna add some of this kind of darker, brighter green and bring it down in here. And you can do this how I'm doing it, just kind of doing it all at once, or you can work in layers too. If you want to have more depth in this grass, you can absolutely start light and then build up your different grass layers. But I just kind of want the general feeling of the grass instead of every single individual grass. So I'm gonna just add this Quinn gold in here, separate things out. Then I'm gonna get a little water. I want a little bit darker value now as I get closer to the water. Like I'm a little bit of this in here. And you can make some grassy marks even. And it's just real dark right down by the grass or the water. So I'm gonna build up that line a bit. But you want that medium color too in there. You don't want to have it jump too quickly from dark to light. So I'm going to come back in and put a little bit of a medium value in there. Again, you can get as detailed as you want. You see how it's all kind of blending together and blending out, which is what I want. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush so I can get a little more detail. And I like variation in the colors. Just want it to be a little messy, like it's a grassy plain. So the more you mess it up, the more realistic it's gonna feel. And it's just so much fun to play when it's like this. There does get to be a point where you gotta put it down and stop, but I'm not there yet. Just keep going. I might even add a little bit more of that Quinn gold color too. We'll come back. This isn't our last layer of grass. We're gonna come back in and do a little more with it. You can see I'm getting that medium color in there now. But this is about the moment we should stop because it's drying on me. But we'll come back in and add more and blend it out. Sometimes I feel like just making a mess, but it works. Don't be afraid to make a mess. Like the mess is what makes it feel real. I want a little more of that gold in here. Sometimes when I'm doing this, I feel like I'm looking more at my painting than like the painting I did than the painting I'm doing, and that's not the right move. I gotta pay attention to this one. It's like I told you when I first started that this one's probably gonna look different than the last one. Just by the nature of the watercolor. I'm actually liking what's happening over here with this. Okay, I'm gonna stop and let it dry, and then we'll come back. You wanna leave it light enough that some of our grasses that the texture we'll put in will be able to pop out on there. So this, same thing. I'm gonna make it grassy. I'm gonna actually use a little bit bigger brush, cover more space. I'm gonna start light and then work the dark in there. And it's kind of like wet on wet, but it is wet on wet. I'm using wet paint instead of getting it the water, just water. The wet paint will work. Okay. And then start building up your color a little bit. And again, leave it light enough that we can come in and add these grasses, this detail in that will show up without using just straight black. And vary it, like have it be a little bit messy, because that's how grass looks. It's not all one color unless it's really far away, and then it can read that way, but okay. So like this undersea green, I'm going to build that a little darker. You can tell, like when I'm trying to not be too detailed, I'm using a bigger brush. It keeps me from getting into the weeds. Pun intended. Let's see. There. So give it a little bit of shape. And we're going to come back in and work our magic. Okay. All right. I am happy with that, how that turned out. I think that my grass is nice and messy, which is exactly what I wanted. And next we're going to dry it, and we're going to do our trees. So that way we know where we're going to put our reflection. So let's go ahead and dry everything. Okay, let's do our trees. So take a look at these trees that are in the picture. They are not perfect. They are wonky. Like one has, I didn't even paint it how it actually is. It has a branch that comes way out here. So you can do literally anything with these, and just as long as you are having fun. And I think the main thing to get right here is your paint consistency, because if it's too watery, you aren't going to have the right control. So we did these background trees. Let's do a little side view over here of doing a more detailed tree. How I like to do it is I like using these liners, and the liner is good, or sometimes I even like this little tiny quill if I want to be a little looser, but I feel like these trees are a little more spindly than what this brush would do, because this one will hold a lot more water. This one does not. So we can be very detailed with this liner. And I like to start at the top and work my way down. And you can kind of just follow the line that you made. And imagine this is your trunk, and sweep it out and move your brush in different directions. If you have it all in one direction again, see, there we go. Got to make sure your paint consistency is right too. So if you have it all in one direction, it starts to look a little more schematic than realistic, which sometimes that is what you want to go for, depending on your painting. But in this one, we want them to feel a little bit more realistic. So just make sure you have the right consistency of your paint. If we use something, here, we'll use this because it's nice and watery. All right, so this is a really watery paint consistency. And you see how I just am not able to get the same level of crispness and detail on this tree versus this one where I had a lot of control because the paint is thicker. So let's go ahead and make a color that we like. I don't want to use just black as I think it's boring. So I like this undersea green a lot for these, but add some black to it to get the right color. And again, you don't want to have your paint be too watery in this scenario. I'm using the wrong brush for mixing though. Like get something where you can actually pick up some paint and do some mixing. And you see it looks pretty much black on my palette, but once I get it on here and once it dries, it's going to feel a lot more green. I think that might be good actually for what I'm wanting. It's nice. Okay. Maybe I'll add a little bit of this green too, just to brighten it up a bit. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Is it okay? Okay. Is my head in it the whole time? No? Okay. I think I'm doing better with that. I'm trying.
Awesome. We're recording. It's looking great.
Cool. All right. We have 4 trees we're going to do. So you can start anywhere that you want. I am right-handed, so I'm going to plan this out so I'm not dragging my hand across the paper. So I am going to start with this tree. And I like to think about when you get to the bottom how it's going to feel grounded in that space. So I like to blend it out. So I am going to make my, let's see, my trunk kind of in the center of this little island that I made. Drag your tree up. It does not need to be perfectly straight. That tree on the painting or on the actual photograph is not perfectly straight at all. And then just start making your marks. Make your tree. And just have fun with it. Like this is the relaxing part. It does not need to be perfect. And it's just a piece of paper. You can see like this is a little bit more watery than when I started, and I'm just using that paint and moving it down the tree. You can add some branches and some needles on it. But you should try to work somewhat fast so that your tree has the same color-ish. And I feel like if I walk away from a tree while I'm midway and then I come back to it, my strokes have a way of changing. Like it's just, every tree has a life of its own. And when you're in it, finish it. You can thicken up the trunk if you want in certain spots. Like this tree in the photograph has the trunk visible kind of in the middle. I'm gonna sort of do that, but not really in the spot that's shown on the picture. Leave some space between branches. I do kind of want to cover up this space that I left back here. Like I like the idea of having some of the water shine through, but I don't necessarily want to go back in there and mess with that water. Like I like the brightness of it back there, but I don't want to fuss with it really. Okay, we're kind of down at the bottom, like what I was saying about wanting to blend this out. So we're at that spot where we want to ground this tree. So I like to take a brush and just kind of sweep it along the bottom and blend it in so it feels like it's part of the ground instead of on top of the ground. And we'll add some more in here to blend it out, and we're gonna add some trees and grasses in the front of it too to ground it also. Okay, so that tree is good. So I'm gonna keep working from left to right again so I don't smear these other trees that I'm doing. So I need a little bit more of that color. I'm gonna need a little more of my undersea green to get that dark color that I was hoping for. And I do love making these trees. Whenever I can't think of anything to paint, I usually start with misty trees. You don't really have to think, you let the paintbrush guide you, and it's so relaxing. It's like the less perfect it is, the better. Okay, so let's test this out. Make sure we got that nice thick consistency, but not too dry. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, so let's get going. I'm using my liner. I'm gonna, I don't usually do this. Maybe now isn't the moment to start while I'm teaching you what to do, but I am gonna put where I want these trees a little bit on here, and feel free to do this or not. But I want to make sure that I space them how I want. So I'm gonna just draw kind of simple, and who knows, it might end up changing, but where I want these trees, sort of how I want them spaced and what height feels good to me. I think that feels pretty good. Just real light pencil that I'm going to cover up. There we go. Okay. Let's make some more trees. And I'm stopping it behind my grass. So you see when I hit where my grasses are really more textured than this green grass that's in the background, that's so that way it feels like it's behind those grasses. If I drew it all the way down, it would pop it forward. So make sure you stop before you think you should. Okay. I didn't like how blobby it got, but you know what I said before. They don't need to be perfect. The less perfect they are, the better. Just keep going. I hope you love painting this Oregon scene. Like it's just, you can almost feel the 60-degree weather. I'm kind of looking at the inspiration image more than my painting because that is one wacky tree. It's doing some real weird stuff. And I think it makes your painting more interesting to add a little bit of that wacky flavor. And yeah, I don't always use a liner when I do these kinds of trees. Like I said, if I want it to be a little bit chunkier, I actually come in with a larger brush and can make bigger sections where it's less transparent. But I really wanted to capture the spindly vibe of these trees. It is like a little more time consuming to do it this way, but it just gives it that delicate look. And again, if you walked away right now and then tried to come back and keep that same rhythm that you have, it would be hard. Like if you start a tree, always finish it, in my experience. Like just keep going. And then once you're done with it, okay, take a break if you need to, but not in the middle of your tree. Okay. There's 2 down, 2 more to go. Let's keep going. Kind of appreciated how these trees were spaced so you could see each individual tree. Like they kind of connect all at the bottom and make a bit of a mess, but I like that too. And this one I added these branches in there. This one I'm not going to do that. I'm just gonna fan it out a little bit, more like a Christmas tree. And I'm using almost a cup shape to create this, the strokes on this one. Whereas some of the other ones, I mixed up which direction it was going in, just to give you some different ideas on ways to do this. There's no right or wrong way. There's so many different ways to get the same effect. Just so long as you don't make straight lines. I do not see many straight lines on this tree other than the trunk. So that's like a little bit globby for my delicate tree situation I got going here. I'm going to just make it a little thicker there, and that's okay. I love to paint Oregon scenes because of the trees. Every time I go on a hike, I'm always taking a million pictures of the same view, and it kind of drives my husband crazy because he does not, like, he's like, I saw it, but I have to capture the perfect angle to paint it later. So oftentimes the trees are framing it or in the way, or, you know, you got to get the right angle. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I'm liking this. I like how these are all connecting, but you can definitely tell there's two distinct trees. All right, final tree. In the picture, this one looks like it's leaning and kind of falling over. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make a nice little straight, healthy looking tree. But you do not have to. Like I said, if it's a leaning tree, that's totally fine. That's what the real tree is doing. Just have fun with it. And I am looking at the space around my tree, thinking of what I want it to look like, and I'm also thinking about what's showing behind it, kind of like these trees in the background. So I'm giving a little bit of space there for those. This one I am giving a few branches too. Okay. I'm liking how this is turning out. I hope you like how yours is looking too. Your happy little trees. It's got a little chunky right in there, but I kind of like it. It's as the trees get thicker as they get to the bottom, and it grounds them a little more. You start to read this as one plane, and I kind of want that. I'm taking it off of the paper a bit, or all the way to the edge. Okay, I'm happy with my trees. All right, so next is the water. And the water, to be honest, was the thing that stressed me out about this painting. When my sister and I did it, I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna paint this water, but I will tell you to not be afraid. It's just a piece of paper, and I figured out what worked for me was doing a wash with actually my kind of green, dirty water. It actually gave it that greenish hue that you see, that muddy green, that it muted everything. A lot of times I would have wanted a clean water, but the pigment that's in our dirty water is going to give this the right coloring for what we want. So we're going to use our dirty water, people, and then we're going to add in the shadows. And these are going to be the same color that we used on the trees. We're just going to dilute it a little bit. And then we're going to build up the shadow that's along the edge. And then we're going to put a few lines in. I recommend doing horizontal lines. When my sister, I was teaching her how to do it, she ended up making very big lines, almost like a scoop, and that made it look more like a tumultuous river, which was cool, but the look that this inspiration image has is very serene and kind of still. So if you want it to look more still, make your lines a little bit more straight and even. So let's go ahead and dry this, and then let's do our water. Okay, so watercolor reconstitutes with water. So we do not want to get water onto our grass area, not very much anyway, because it's gonna run and we don't want it to be diluted into run. If it runs a little bit, that's fine. I just try not to get it up in here or touch your trees because your trees will blend out. So let's test our dirty water, guys. So this is the light green water, which it's kind of nice. Like we could use the light green water, or we can use our dark green water. Get your paper towel out. As we might end up using this paper towel to pick up some paint and some pigment too. There's our dirty water, which, you know, it's kind of the same once it's on here. That looks a little bit more green to me. Actually, I'm liking that. Let's go with it. So use your dark, dirty water. And I want you to get just your river wet. See how I'm not touching the sides? Get it all just like when we did the first round of wet on wet. We're gonna do that again. Get it consistently wet. And this is when you gotta work kind of fast. So if you have something you need to do, like take care of a kid, this isn't what you wanna do. You need to work when the paint or when the water is nice and damp, when you have a moment to yourself. Okay, all right, so it's on there. So let's add our reflection. So this is the part that's kind of trial and error, and you're just gonna play with it, is adding a dark green hue, but not too dark. Kind of a watered down green to your water. And then we're gonna do our trees. So I want it to be more green than it is, because there's so much green in this. So get those lines, like I was talking about, those horizontal lines. And we want that green to show up in the reflections. But don't do the whole thing green, because then you're going to lose some of that luminosity that your water has. And you can even look at the reference image, and it has so much white. There's so much white being reflected that you don't want to lose that. But you do need to have a little bit of depth. So I'm liking how this is working out so far. Start light and then go darker. So we did our light green. Next, we're going to go a little bit darker green along the edge. The shadow, and this shadow is going to pop more once we add the shadow to the grass. But we're doing this reflection first, and you see how lovely it fans out as it's wet. It's doing all the blending and work for you. This is one of the best things about watercolor, is it just can paint water so easily since it's mostly water anyway. So this is my light reflection. I'm going to kind of start this process of making my tree reflection. Same with over here. I'm going to follow it down, drag it down. You see it's like a little wet, so it's fanning out, but I don't mind that. No big deal. I'm going to do the same thing going this way. Same spot. This one's going to come down this way. And then go back and forth. Give it real. Doesn't need to be a perfect reflection. It's better if it's not. Make it a little irregular is good. And we're going to blend this out too. So get it down in the paint. Add just a few other reflections, maybe build up your dark value along the edge. Like normally I wouldn't want a dark line, but I do in this instance because you can tell like the darkest spot is where this shadow is meeting the water. You can do it either on the dry side, or I kind of like to put it on here and then blend it out a bit. You can even tell in the picture it's fades out a little. Okay, so I did it with the bigger brush. I'm going to come in with a dry brush and do a little bit of blending. This. I'm going to try not to cover this up with my hair and blend it out. The blending it out really helps. And you can do as many layers as your paper will withstand. That's actually one of the things I love about this Arches paper is you can end up doing more layers. If you use a wood pulp paper rather than a cotton paper, it can't handle the abuse that the cotton papers can. So if you try to put more and more layers on it or lift paper, it's going to buckle on you and you're going to be fighting that paper. So using a good quality paper, it's so worth it. Like you're going to have so much more success. And I know it's expensive, but I mean, I am not shy. If I do a painting and I don't like it, I will flip that piece of paper over and use it again, even on the wrong side, and you're still learning something, right? So I think if you do anything, you invest in anything with watercolor, invest in your paper. Like it is going to make you feel a lot more accomplished having that good paper. I really want this line that I made. I like how this is looking in here, but I just want to blend it out a little bit more. And you can just, it's okay if you have some blooms and stuff in the water. Like it can be a little messy. And you can see I'm doing a little bit of a dry brushing. And you just go until you get the amount of depth and contrast you want. You want some dark values, you want medium, and you want light values. You need all three to make your water feel natural. I'll probably come back in once it's a little drier and make that a little bit more dark, kind of like this. I'm gonna blend this out a little, and then I'm gonna layer on top of that. And this I want to increase the dark value. And then we're gonna do a little dry brushing. Then we're gonna leave it alone, because that's the other thing, is knowing when to stop. And I mean, you could just keep going. A lot of times I like to leave my painting alone for a whole night and then come back to it the next day and see if any of my values need to be fixed or changed. Because when you're deep in it, like we are right now, looking at your painting for an hour or more, you are going to make different decisions than you would if you came back to it with fresh eyes the next day. So let's see, I want to do some dry brushing, but I do want it to be kind of light. And see, I did some dry brushing on here. And I don't want to get too crazy with it. Just a little bit to give this water that texture. Okay. I'm gonna stop there and we'll up the color right in this area to give us a little bit better depth. And then we're gonna add our details, and then I think we'll be done. So. I told my sister that this was kind of a hard first painting. This was her first watercolor painting ever, this one. And I think it's a good one for beginners because you learn a lot of different techniques, but I wouldn't call it easy, just because of all of the layering, and the values, I think, are very important in this. I'm using green actually to get the shadow feeling a little bit darker. Then I am going to add a little bit of this black and blend it all together. There we go. And then drag it out. So it's wet, but drag it to blend. Like it can have a little bit of a hard line, but there's something about you drag it out that makes it feel a little bit softer. Okay. Now stop. Gotta stop. You can fuss with it and overwork it and make it muddy, and that is not what we want to do. Okay. That's good. Let's dry it, and then we're going to do details. And this is what's really going to bring it to life, I think. So. Okay. Details. feel like I've painted this whole thing with this tiny brush, but I really love this liner because you can get those details that you just can't get with anything. Even a number 2 is so much bigger. So I'm gonna keep going with this, but you do whatever feels comfortable. And we're gonna add, I'm gonna work again from left to right so I'm not dragging my paint around. And I might work all around a little bit, but I'm gonna add in this little tree that's, you know, sticks basically. We're gonna add in these different values of grasses too to give it that depth. All right, I'm gonna start with my little stick tree situation. And with these, I don't know, I tried to explain how to do it, and I think that you just know that the branch is thick at the base and gets thinner as it goes up. And don't make every mark the same. They go in different directions. They cross over each other. Like, I feel like I said it with the evergreen trees, like you just mess it up. Make it a little bit messed up and it's gonna look better. Like wobbly is good. Just nothing's too perfect in nature. And that's what's gonna make it interesting to look at. Like even in the inspiration image, there's like a branch that looks almost broken that's going down like this. And think about your values. This is why I wanted to paint the background kind of light, so that way this would pop a little bit more. So all of this detail we're adding isn't going to be lost. And you can get those real tiny little branches if you want to, or if you don't want to, you don't have to. Just have fun with it. All right. Feeling happy enough with my little stick tree. Might add another trunk to it just for fun. Okay, there we go. All right, now let's do some grasses. And I like to use different values of green for this. I like this bright sap green mixed with our undersea green. Look at how pretty this green is. It's like so bright, looks like springtime, and it's gonna pop when we add it on here. Like we'll be able to see it, which is what I want. So just go on in and add a little bit of it. And it's kind of that medium green in the background is what I want. A medium green. And then as we move forward, we're gonna get darker. So I'll be using more of that undersea green up in the front. But I'm making my little bunchy grasses, giving these blobs a little bit of texture that lets the viewer know that it's all grass. And it really pops against that twin gold that is behind there. Why we had that differentiation in color. Just, there we go. Add a little bit underneath your trees too, maybe a little darker to ground your trees. Make them look like they're behind the grass instead of in front of the grass. You have a little shadow. See, you aren't going to have crazy shadows because it's such a foggy, overcast day, so everything's a little bit muted. All right, I'm going to do the same thing over here. Add a little bit of this grass, blend it out, give my tree something to attach to so it doesn't look like it's floating. I'm gonna add a little bit darker color in there too. That's what's gonna make it feel like it's in the ground, not hovering above it. I feel like this is another spot where I have a tendency to overwork just because I like to make my grasses. So every so often while you're making your grassy marks, take a breath, take a beat, look at it, ask yourself, is that next mark gonna add to this painting or is it gonna detract? So, all right. So that's like our mid-ground layer of grasses, I'd say. You see just how much more definition those tiny little marks gave to this. It really gives that feeling of grass, like layers and layers of grass, having a little bit of that texture added. Okay, so now let's get it a little bit darker and more exciting along this line here. And I'm going to use the undersea green. That undersea green got a little bit of black in it, so I'm going to start over in here. There we go. That's better. And I'm going to add some of this bright green, the sap green to it, just to brighten it a little bit. And you, like I said before, you could definitely mix your own green. You don't have to go with these pre-made greens. Like the Play-Doh blue mixed with the lemon yellow makes a nice green. I like using pre-mixed greens sometimes. It just makes the painting go a little bit faster because you already have a good jumping off point, and you know, like if one has more blue in it or more yellow in it, you can play with those colors. I don't know, like no one ever taught me how to mix colors. It's just something I learned doing. Like I learned by doing it a lot. And I think that a lot of watercolor is just trial and error and seeing what works for you and what feels right and having fun with it. And sometimes your experiments work and you're like, yes, that was amazing, that effect that I got. And other times you're like, what even happened? And that's when you paint on the other side of the paper. I have so many paintings that I've done that. Some that I've given to family and friends, and they're like, what, I get 2 paintings? And I'm like, yep, you definitely get 2 paintings. Like, I like the one on this side better than the other one. Okay, so I'm gonna build up my colors here. I'm gonna do this green, and then as I get lower, I'm gonna put in that darker shadow. I'm actually liking how my grasses are turning out better on the one I'm painting now than the one I did before. It was about bedtime for my kids when I painted this with my sister. So I think we were like rushing there at the end to get ready to lay down my 4- and 6-year-old, and it was a little hectic. So this is way more relaxing than last time I painted it. My daughter also painted it with me. At the beginning anyway, she's 4, so her attention span was limited, but she did pretty good. Like her trees were adorable. They were like little popsicle looking trees, like lollipop trees. They were great. So she loves to paint with me. Okay, so let's do the same thing down here. Oh yeah. And I'm gonna mix up my color a little bit more up in the front here, just because there's not a lot of this quin gold in this section, and I kind of want to see it over here since it's over there. I know I didn't do it on this one, but I just kind of missing that color on this side, that warmth that it's bringing. So I'm going to add a little bit of it in here. Yeah, I'm liking that. So you can see like there's just a lot of different layers going on, a lot of different textures. And you can get really as detailed with this painting as you want. If you just want it to be a little simple, more simple, you do not have to go as grass crazy as I am. But I'm a Kansas girl. I like grasses. So, okay. Almost done, people. Just a little more. Okay. There. All right, now build up your shadow a little. You don't have to go crazy, but build up your shadow and do a little bit of blending down at the bottom. This is what's gonna make this look a little more natural. Because right now my line very much looks like a line. But if you break it up with your shadow a bit, do a little bit of blending, it's gonna give you a little more depth along this edge. See that dark color, and just move it around the edge. Give your grasses that shape, and the edge of the water that shape. I think we're about done. We're gotta add our birds. It's like I always try not to add my birds because I think pretty much all of my paintings have birds, but I just can't help myself. They just add a little bit of, I don't know, happiness for me. Okay. I'm gonna blend this out just a bit. Yeah, there we go. That blending really does a lot. Don't skip the blending step. I know it makes it look a little bit muddy, but that's what gives it that softness that just wasn't there before we blended. Okay. All right. So what do we think? Feeling pretty good about it. Let's dry it and add our birds, and then I think we're done. I think we did it. Okay. All right, bird 30. Let's do it. Okay, so you can make your birds. Let's have a little birdie tutorial over here. You can make realistic birds, or you can do kind of easy birds like I'm gonna do. And that's what we're gonna do on this one. Just some nice simple birdies. I don't want them to be pitch black because then they're gonna come forward too much, and I want them to look like they're a little bit in the distance. So we're gonna do kind of a watered down black. And again, I'm using my liner like I did for this entire painting. And you can vary the length of your wings to make it feel like your bird is turning in a certain direction, and the thickness. So if it's a thicker wing on one side, it should be, and say that's your body, a thinner wing on that side, because then it feels like the bird is turning towards you a little bit. Or, I mean, honestly, if you make just a simple V, everyone's gonna know that that's a bird. So don't get too caught up in your head about it. I like doing, even with planting design, people like odd numbers, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, like you do as many birds as you want. Just make sure you do an odd number of birds. That is my main recommendation. It's like odd numbers just look better. Okay, pick your birdie spots and have at it. See, simple little V's. They totally work. That one got a little wild, but I don't mind. Maybe that's an eagle. Okay, we're done. I hope that you enjoyed painting this with me. And also, the big reveal is always taking off this tape. I don't think I'll save this tape this time. I think it's done. There's my 5x7. So if I wanted to frame it, I can cut along those lines. Or if you want to do something different, you could rip along that line. It gives it kind of a rustic appearance. And that's it. Thanks for painting with me today.